Midnight Suns. I have to say this is one of those games I didn't have in my radar. That's because the initial idea didn't sound that appealing. It seems more like something to, to a cash grab, even though it had Firaxis behind. However, I have to say after the reviews of the game came out that it really caught my attention as something I really wanted to play. So I'm very grateful for the publisher to give me a key to test it in my channel, on both my Spanish and English channel. So I normally take the time to talk about the technical aspects of the game, but in this case I want to make a parenthesis and just talk a little bit about why I like this game so much. And it is because it's a strategy game just like XCOM, but with a little twist. To begin with, of course, we have some superheroes, which makes the encounter more spectacular, but also the fact that the attacks are based on cards. So this makes the encounters more random because you don't know all the time what sort of cards are you going to get, making it different to other games where each character has their own unique set of abilities. Here, yes, they have their abilities, but at the same time, you depend on what you have on your hand in order to play. So that makes the game very, very good. I also have to say that the game has like two parts to it. There is the strategic part of the game where you're playing in this like isometric field where you control, and then there is like this third person sort of games where you are making more like social interactions with other characters in order for you to like bond with them, but also to make the story progress and talk and create this sort of story. And the reason I mention this is because the performance between these two areas is completely different, making sort of the technical review a little bit hard, because you cannot just set one set of options and forget about it if you are trying to get certain targets. But let's not get to that yet. As I said, this is a game that I've been enjoying. The story is something about the Midnight Suns and Lilith that has been resurrected, and you are this reborn hero that is brought from the grave, because you are going to have a custom character, and that is going to be you, the one you're going to be, progressing, and you're going to be fighting with these heroes. I don't know if this whole Midnight Suns thing is a Marvel thing, because I have to be honest, I'm not super into Marvel. So I'm not quite sure if Midnight Suns is something that exists or is something that it was created specifically for this game. But let's just say that the Midnight Suns are something sort of like the Avengers, but they seem more mystical, like magic and that sort of things. So that's where you come in play, you personalize your character, and then you start progressing, like improving your cards, improving your abilities, talking to other characters in order for you to bond and then have like better cards to play, more powerful cards to play during the combat part of it. So it makes the game, like have two areas, and it makes it very fun. And even though some interactions are a little bit cringy, if you ask me, I don't know, they seem a little bit forced, and I don't think the story is the best, but it's quite serviceable and fun. So I think you're going to have a great time. I know I'm having it, and I'm really loving this game. So once again, I want to say thank you to the publisher for giving me the key, because I have this small channel. It's very rare for me to get these sort of games. I normally will get more like indie games and so on, which are great too. But it's also nice to get like a big double game from time to time. So I would really recommend this game if you love like sort of XCOM style of play, because this is really, really one of the most fun I had in a long time. Also I have to make a very special mention to the photo mode of this game, which is quite good and complete, but also that every time you finish a mission, it generates this sort of comic magazine where you can personalize everything about it. Like it's always related to something happened during the gameplay, but then you can change absolutely everything: the pose of the character, the way they're shown, effects, the backgrounds, the what is said, the stickers, everything, to make like your own personalized magazine picture that you can then put even on your room. So that's quite interesting and good, and I thought, you know, it's a different touch. But okay, I've been talking a lot about the game. Let's talk about the technical aspects of it. So I have to say that what you're seeing now is everything running, and what you've seen so far with the RTX 4090 on my 12600K F running at 5 gigahertz. And you know, initially I was thinking, wow, this game runs really good when I was in the battle, because that's the first thing you encounter if you start with the tutorial, is a battle area, so you can start understanding how the battle works. And as I said, there is a very different performance between the third-person part and the combat parts of the game, where I was going for 120 FPS in combat, then I couldn't get to even 100 when I was in third person, and sometimes I will get as low as 40 FPS. I also have to say there was a lot of stuttering, and initially I thought, oh, this is another Unreal struggle. And yes, there are some, but they are not as intrusive as I thought initially. The biggest problem really is the ray tracing. And it seems that developers nowadays want to have all kind of options, just like to check something on a checklist, but they don't seem to optimize or care. It's like, okay, let's do the game, and at the end of it, just add 2 options for ray tracing and forget about it. To begin with, these 2 options for ray tracing are ambient occlusion and reflection. I have to say that both of them don't really bring anything to the table. Like, I am a very big defender of ray tracing, but the implementation of this case in this game is atrocious, because the reflection doesn't do much the same as the ambient occlusion, but also it tanks the performance in ways I have never seen before. Like, yes, I have seen games that the ray tracing tanks the performance more, but I also receive more from them. Like, the graphics improve, it's better quality, better reflection. Here you are barely going to notice anything, and the game performance tanks and also stutters a lot. And I think this is because of Unreal. I think Unreal is the problem, as we saw this on Callisto Protocol and we're seeing now. I don't think the ray tracing implementation in Unreal 4 at least uses more than 1 or 2 cores, and this is why it's making the game struggle, because I don't think it's just like, you know, a setting you just activate and that's it. Probably that's what most developers are doing, just activating the setting and then, you know, just brute force through it, while they are not optimizing anything at all, because this is something I see many times on different Unreal Engine games when it comes to ray tracing. However, as you've been seeing in the footage, you can see that during the combat areas of the game, the performance is so much better. I can get, with ray tracing and everything, over 100 FPS without too much issue. However, you're going to also notice that it's going to stutter when new effects come in place, and this stutter is not as evident when you're playing without ray tracing. So for this reason, this is one of the few games with ray tracing where I'm going to say you should not use it, because it's not the fact that it's demanding, because I understand that ray tracing is demanding, but I also understand that when that happens, you get something in return, like on Cyberpunk, for example, and hopefully the next The Witcher 3 next gen edition, which is probably going to give me a more bigger change in graphic if I activate those options. So I can justify doing that in those cases with any GPU. But in the case of Midnight Suns, honestly, ray tracing is bad. Like, leave it alone, don't touch it, don't activate it, because it's honestly not only a big CPU killer, but also doesn't offer absolutely anything. Other than that, I have to say that the game looks very good and it runs very well. You can see here, even though I'm running with ray tracing, that the game is running quite good. And obviously, if I turn off ray tracing, I can get 144 FPS all the time with no issues whatsoever. Obviously, having a 4090, I want to play the games with everything bells and whistling I can, but as I said, one thing is the combat, and the other part is the ray trace, is the third person where the performance tanks. So I have to say that probably the most interesting solution to this problem, and is not to turn on ray tracing, obviously, but because there is these two areas so different, it's probably better to just use dynamic resolution scaling. And I'm going to explain this in the next part of the video, when we are going to be testing with the GTX 1060, so you can understand what I'm trying to say. So as you can see here, even a 1060, obviously it doesn't accept ray tracing. You are going to get very good frames playing a high resolution. Well, high resolution for a 1060. We're talking 1080p on a 6-year-old car. I think is very good, considering you can see on top that we're going 90 to 80 FPS. Now you can say that this is overkill for some situations. The reason this is happening is because why should I need the dynamic resolution scaling if I am over 60 FPS? And the reason is because when we go to the third-person part of the games, the performance tanks so much and it goes so low that then if you want to always have 60 FPS even in those areas, you will have to lower the quality of the game or fix the resolution to something very low or use FSR all the time, even though then you're going to get like a 80 to 60 to 70 FPS on the combat part of the game. And let's be honest, you don't need that much FPS in either situation because this is not a very fast-paced game. So by using dynamic resolution scaling, you're ensuring that in the third-party areas, on the third-person area, you are going to still get a very good performance even if the resolution is low, but you are always be that low. When it comes to the actual game, then the resolution is going to be higher, so you don't have to limit yourself to lower quality even when you don't need that, which is the combat part, unless you want to be changing settings depending on what area you are, and I don't think that's going to be a very good gaming experience. So that's why I think in any situation where you're sort of limited, to use dynamic resolution scaling will be the best solution. So obviously I wanted to test the ARC 750. This is, to see the evolution of this car. And I have to say, initially I was very impressed. We are playing 1440p, epic quality with FSR in ultra quality, and I even activated one ray tracing option, which was the ambient occlusion, and the game was running very good. But that's because I was on the combat part of the game and I was like, wow, this is running very, very well, at least for what I was expecting for an R750. The problem is in this case that I was playing this, I was like super happy. We could activate even one ray tracing option. I had a very good experience, and that ended the moment the game entered in the third person mode. When you get to that mode, then everything is gone. I was playing at 24 FPS, and by just removing that RT option, I went over 60 FPS. That's why I say the ray tracing option in this game is completely broken and it's not worth it, because you can have a good experience on the combat, but then atrocious experience when you're going on the third person area. They seem to be completely different qualities, completely different specs of game, because I have never seen such a big difference in performance between one area of the game and another. So I wouldn't recommend it. But other than that, the ARC 750 will run the game absolutely no problem, a very good quality and performance. To confirm this, I tried the same with the RTX 3060 because they are sort of equal, and I had the same experience with ray tracing. And in this case, by using the LSS quality without ray tracing at 1440p epic quality, you can see that I can get over 70 FPS in the third person, which means that when I get to the combat area, I am going to easily hit 120 FPS, for example, with the 3060, which is quite good considering what we were saying before about the performance. So yeah, once again, you can see here now when we go to the combat that I get close to the 120, and sometimes I surpass it depending on what's happening on the screen. So you see, that's the point I'm trying to make from the beginning. Forget about ray tracing. This game has very good performance as long as you don't try to even use ray tracing in this game. You're going to get a very good experience no matter what GPU you're using. That's why I'm not giving that many tests with different GPUs, because I think we already know or have the point that this is going to perform very well on a different types of GPU. Finally, being a Steam game, I could test on my Steam Deck, and in this case, I obviously have my Steam Deck dock. Do not worry about battery, and if that's your situation, you will be able to play this game at 720p on your screen or on your Steam Deck while portable mode, even hitting 60 FPS during the combat area at medium setting using dynamic resolution scaling. So you're going to have a very good experience. Obviously, this is in case you're playing on a dock where you are not worrying about electricity or power consumption. If you are worried because you are playing with the battery, obviously the best option will be to limit the game to 30 FPS. And maybe lower even to low, just trying to squeeze as much battery as you can. Obviously, this will not give you 60 FPS in the third-person mode, but I don't think that matters too much, considering that in the Steam Deck, well, you know, you're trying to limit anyway. This is only on extreme cases when you're playing on a dock and you don't care about anything else. I think that this is not a verified game, but it's still running very good. So I will say this is a very good game for the Steam Deck, because you can just go play a little bit and just maybe suspend it or continue playing. But it's one of those games that allows you for quick 10-minute games and just get to the next part. So yeah, this is my test on the game. I really like the game. I would recommend you to get it if you sort of like this sort of games. And as you can see, as long as you are far away from ray tracing, the game is going to perform very good, and you're going to be able to play on a different variety of hardware and even CPU. All CPUs should be able to move this without no issues, just with 4 cores. It's not a very CPU dependent game. It's only, as I said once again, if you activate RT, just forget about it. Just play the game without it, and you are going to enjoy it a lot. I know I am. Thank you very much, and see you on the next video. Please subscribe. Please subscribe.